Welcome back to the virtual classroom, starting with the second half of the semester for Comp 3077 online. And if you're in a face-to-face section, if you've been watching these videos, welcome back to you as well. We are now done with the first test. We are getting into week 7. I am doing this video with a slightly different microphone. I actually wanted to kind of get ahead on the videos a little bit here. And I didn't have the usual microphone I use. It's still a very good microphone, but in case any of you are that attentive to my audio quality, and I'm very picky about it. This isn't my favorite mic, but it's still a good one. So I'm sure you'll be hearing me crystal clear. And this is a required video. This will be the week 7 case demo. I do want to make a note before we start here that the first half of the course dealt with beginner to intermediate level type of skills in Excel. We are now getting into the more advanced stuff. These cases for weeks 7 through 12, therefore, will carry a slightly heavier weight than the ones that we had in weeks 1 through 5. They were worth 3%. The weeks 7 through 12 cases will be worth 4%. So just a note on that. You want to stay on top of your work. Just a really quick note here that I'm adding into the video before we jump into the week 7 content and case content. This case does have a step on it that requires the accounting format. We haven't encountered the accounting format yet. It's very, very simple. I'll show you how to do it in the case instructions. But this is one of those formats where if you didn't in week 2 go into the instructions and resources and notice, especially if you're in an online section, that you should change your language settings on your computer, your global language settings to English United States, you need to do that now. There's a couple links here. In week 2, you can Google it. It's very easy to do. You need to change your system language settings on your computer to English United States to make sure that you don't lose 1 point on the week 7 case. It's not a big deal. It's just that we are doing the accounting format. And I've been told that there is still a really tiny difference with English Canada versus English US. So please go ahead and do that before you start the case. And then you won't have any issues with step 6D. Is what it is right there, okay? It's quite simple. If you have any trouble, email your professor. We're always there to help you. This particular case, despite the fact that we are getting into more advanced stuff now, starting right after the first test, is going to be one of your shorter videos of the semester because it just doesn't take that long to demonstrate, and it's one where you may want to pause and go back and re-watch some of these sections to make sure you're doing it exactly the way I'm doing it. This case is all about tools that you can use to create efficiency when you're working with multiple worksheets, multiple files. We're going to do 3D referencing. We're going to do grouping for formatting, so you can format stuff on different worksheets all at the same time within the same file. We're going to work with links a bit more. We were introduced to that right before the test in week 5. And then we're really going to dive into the name manager and working more with defined names, which is really helpful when you start getting into more advanced lookup functions, when you want to reference something from a different sheet. That kind of stuff. So let's get started. I do have the instructions already downloaded. You will see that this particular case, like we had right before the test with week 5, does have some supplemental files. Unlike week 5, where you didn't even necessarily use all the files or have to open them. One of them was linked to it, so it was there. You will be using these for sure, but just make sure you don't change the names. Just like in week 5, these files are going to be used as some sort of connectivity. It's actually one of them, it might not matter, but just don't change the names. Just put them into the downloads folder or whatever folder it is where you're working from and keep the names exactly the same. So when you go in for grading, you don't have any issues with grading that have to do with file names that are incorrect, which would be annoying because that's, in the real world, it wouldn't matter, but you need to make sure those file names remain intact. And of course, as usual, you rename the file just like we were for the weeks 1 through 5 cases. Nothing changes there. It's the same course, same cases, same everything. You're just getting a little more credit for the cases because they're getting harder now. So let's go back to well, actually, before we do, I just want to remind you we're getting into the next level of cases here after the first test. Always check your FOL content. It usually provides a bit more of an extensive list of what you're learning. Check and make sure you got everything on, on par to complete that week. This does make a note that your percentage is now going up 1% for your cases, yada, yada, yada. Let's get started. So I already got the instructions downloaded. Let's grab the start file like we usually do. And always, you're going to be renaming it. I did still see some students that were having trouble with file naming on the test. You guys, this is the problem with smartphones. They have made us the worst file managers ever. So we got that. Grab the 2 support files, put them directly in the folder. Do not mess with the names. If you download them more than once, that's where the names would start to be affected. So you just don't want to do that. Just pay attention to your file management. Once you get everything downloaded, as per usual, you can leave that screen open. Let's go to the downloads folder, open up the start file, and let's start working on week 7. Like I said, I think you'll enjoy this one. It's not going to be a very long video, but it's going to teach you some very cool stuff. And a lot of you, the light bulb is going to go on in this video because you're going to say, wow, that is not that hard, even though Mike is considering this an advanced Excel case, but I never knew you could do that. And that's why some of these cases are more advanced. So there's a link in this one, so you'll have to do the double enabling content. Do not mess with the links right now. The instructions will tell you when to deal with that. Just hit continue, and let's jump into the instructions and see where we should be going. And it did tell you right here, don't update. Just when you're opening the start file, you don't need to update the link, just leave it. Same with the grade summary report, you don't need to mess with that. So let's go to step 1 and get started. So you are the sales manager for Narbonne Suites hotel chain, which has locations in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana. Down in the States there. Sorry, we're not using Canadian references. Some of these cases are written by, well, most of them are probably written by some of the American programmers. So first thing you're going to do is break the external link in the worksheet so that the formulas in B4 to B7 of the manager information worksheet are replaced with static values. So I explained this in week 5. We did something similar to this where you can link or make a reference to cells and bring them in from another file. And sometimes this is done this way in order to not have any discrepancy in between the data. There's no cutting and pasting. It's just directly linked to that file. And then afterwards, you break the link so that you have the data there. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And as noted here, we are in the manager information worksheet. So let's go to manager information. And it doesn't really actually matter which worksheet you're in. If you go to data and you go to the link sections and go to edit links, it will show you all the links that are in the file, regardless of which worksheet you're on. You click break link, you click break links again, and the links are broken. Okay, and I could have gone to the cells to confirm that like I did in week 5. We've kind of already gone over that, so that was a sort of a review step. In cell C5, remove the hyperlink, leaving the unlinked text, Bozeman, Montana. So in the cell C5, we go here, we don't want that linked. So click on it. Okay, we don't need to link to it. That may or may not happen to you if you click on the link. Easiest way to do this is to right click. You can remove hyperlink from there. It should also be doable from, if you go here to the link menu and go to links, you can just remove it right here. Okay, so that's on the insert tab. You know me, I'm all about right clicking and doing things a little more quickly. So I like the right clicking idea. Remove link, the text remains the same. Step 2 is complete. Step number 3, in cell D7, create a hyperlink to an email address as follows. Link to the email address, washingtongr@example.com. If you're going to copy, I don't even know if we need to copy that actually. Where do we go? D7. Oh yeah, it's not in there. So you will need to copy that. You can paste that right into the formula bar to avoid the formatting coming through. I mean, as you know, in this point, we're getting into the second half of the course. If you copy and paste it directly into the cell, the formatting would come through, and then you can, choose the option as you're pasting to paste without formatting. You can just as easily paste right into the formula bar and get no formatting. So that's in there now. Now, most of you, depending on your settings, I don't think there'd be very few of you watching this video that would have done that and hit enter and then not seen it create the hyperlink for you. Alternatively, what you can do is from the insert menu, go right to insert hyperlink without putting anything in the cell and put the email address. You go down here, so you have all these different options. Okay, so if you choose to link to email address, you would put the email address right in there, and then you can display. Did they tell you what text to display? It should probably be the email. So if we go back, it says link to the email address that. Use that as the text to display. Use email the statewide manager as the screen tip text. So this is what will come up if you hover over it. Would be hover text, I guess, for HTML. So you can copy that. I would always copy this stuff. Make sure you don't pick up extra spaces. If you copy anything like that, then you never have the typos, capitals, stuff like that. So if the link is already there, you can right click and edit link, or you can simply click on the cell and go to the link there. And when you do that, you will see screen tip. And you can put the screen tip right in there. So alternatively, the other way to do it, and I'm just going to delete that completely, would have been to be sitting in the cell, go to link, nothing will be there, okay? And if you go here, you can see there's difference. They don't prompt you to use mail to : when you go in to put the email address in there. So you're going to have to know that for an email link, you simply put mail to : So the easier way to do it is to actually put the email address right in there, hit enter, and it does it for you. And then you can go in and edit it and add in what you need to add into for the SAM instructions. Oops, no, that's not what's on my clipboard anymore. So just grab that really. Actually, funny enough, it was already in there, so I can just do that. And that will be the text to display. Screen tip text, which should still be on my clipboard. No, it's not. You guys, if you ever want to use Clipboard Manager, you can go back and I think the new version of Windows actually does that for you automatically. That's a really good keyboard shortcut. You can use the Windows icon, the Windows key, plus the V key, and it will show you, see, and then I can go back to well, now I just pasted it in there. And you could use that to get that text without having to go back and cut and paste. So if I'm sitting in there and I go Windows V, then I can choose that and it's done. So I wasn't planning on throwing that into this case, but it just came to mind when I was doing that. So I just showed you two different ways to do that. The first way would have been fine, but this way you can build it without putting anything into the cell, then click OK, and then it's in there. So either one is fine. Make sure you don't have typos or extra spaces. And you should be rock solid then on step 3. Step number 4, create a hyperlink to the, get out of here. Create a hyperlink to the Nebourne Suites location listing as follows. Link to a file. Use this as the text to display. Use this as the screen tip. In the same way that we edited that one, how I showed you could either right click or you can go and insert link. If there's not a link in there at all, you just go to insert link, and then you'll see again, you have all these different options. You can do email like we were just working on. You can link to a place in the document. You could do, create a new document. You can link to a place in that document. You can link to a website, which is really easy. You would just put the, you'd put the address right in there, like the full URL, or you link to the support file. So my downloads is full of stuff, as many of you do have as well. I want the support file, and there's other support files in here from other cases. I want the one about the locations, so support X5A locations. So I go in there, I find it, I click on that file. Okay, that's the file in there, and then I can do the text and the screen tip, which I would recommend copying and pasting. So these are very simple skills to understand. The key is with SAM not to have typos, as always, so copy that. That is the link text, so that will go up there instead of the file name, which is a lot more informative. And then this is the one you get when you hover over it. So we'll go copy that without any extra spaces. Make sure you don't have the spaces. Go into screen tip, put that in there. And we've inserted a new hyperlink with screen tip and link text, linked to a file that time. And now we're going to go in here and change this one a little bit. For step number 5, you're already really comfortable with the insert link dialog box with that environment. All you're going to do is change a little bit of stuff up here. You're going to edit the display text to be this. So I'm going to copy that right now. Switch back to the sheet. Link is already there, so let's just right click, go edit. Change the link text to this. Change the, geez, look at all these movies I haven't downloaded. I don't download, those are from years ago. Stuff my kids wanted, actually. Change the screen tip to this. And make sure you don't have those extra spaces down there. How did that get way down there? Screen tip. OK. No extra spaces. Check again. No extra spaces. We're good. Those of you that want to type this out or insist upon typing it out, you'll probably end up getting a typo. I'm just saying we have no issues with you guys copy and pasting. The main goal of steps 3, 4, and 5 were to learn and experience the hyperlink dialog area and using different options to try a few things. And that doing a domain like a website would be even easier than all those, because you just put that right in there for the link. You don't have to scroll around and find the file, which is the one we just did, which was already there, right? So they just went and found the link. You always put it in with the HTTP in there, and they just put it in. So we're done with step 5. Number 6. EDRA wants to apply consistent formatting to the worksheets submitted by each of the statewide managers. Group Idaho, Montana, and Oregon worksheets together. It's Oregon, by the way. I know that's an O and not an E, but people from Oregon get really mad when you say Oregon. I've been there many times. Trust me, it's true. It's Oregon. Idaho, Montana, and Oregon worksheets together, and then make these changes. So this is a bomber, super awesome, really cool thing to learn to do. For it to work, for this to make sense, you typically will have a layout where a bunch of stuff like this is in the same place. And this happens all the time. People will have a bunch of different locations. Maybe they'll have a bunch of different meeting rooms they're using inside a building. They'll have different employees where you're going to have all the same columns and headers and stuff like that over and over again. So like a lot of the cases, this would be even more powerful if the example included like 25 or 30 worksheets. You can have hundreds, thousands of them, in fact. This only includes a few, which is fine. But for this to work, what we're about to do, the content in the different sheets needs to be in the same cells in the same location. And then what you do to group them is you highlight the first worksheet in line from left to right. You hold down the Shift key, and then you click on the last worksheet in line from left to right. You can also hold down the Control key and click them each individually, but the Shift key is quicker. It just highlights from the other end to the other end and then everything in between. And I think that's the way the quiz prefers you to do it too. If you're highlighting ones that aren't right next to each other, you can use the Control key. Like if I just went to this one and then hit the Control key and went to that one, so you can group sheets that aren't right next to each other. Typically, you're not doing that. And once you create a group, you can either click off it to get the group ungrouped, or once you have a group, like I'm going to do these 3 again. So click the first one. I just clicked it and let go. Hold down the Shift key. Click the last one. You have the 3 sheets grouped as per your requirement at the beginning of step 6. You can also right click and ungroup them when you're done, but we're not going to do that yet because we want them grouped. So what we're going to do now for steps 6 through 8 is a bunch of really basic stuff that you learned in like weeks 1 to 3. The only difference is you're doing it whilst these sheets are grouped, and you can click within the group and it won't ungroup, so you can make sure that it's all happening. So I'm going to stay on Idaho for now, and I'm going to go and change the font size in the merge cell A1 to F1, so just merged A1 to 18. So sit on A1, go to the Home tab, change to 18. So the stuff we're doing here is very, very basic. The difference is if I click on Montana and Oregon, it changed to 18 in all 3 of them. And you could see how powerful this would be if there was like 300 worksheets. And if you accidentally start clicking all around and you ungroup, no big deal, just group again. Sam's never going to know if you were ungrouping and grouping while you were doing this, but ideally you just group the 3 of them together and do all these changes. Apply 20% accent 6 cell style to A2. So click on A2, go to 20% accent 6, which I don't see there in the quick one. So let's go right here. 20% accent 6, that is now done. Bold the values in A6 to A10. So highlight A6, go over to down to A10. So it's the left style row header. So just go B or Control B. Oops, I accidentally italicized them. I'm going to undo that. Don't do that. So next, we're going to do the accounting format. And this I mentioned at the beginning of the case. This is the first time the actual accounting format has come up, which could have some very minor issues with language settings. I think it's only a 1-point step. But if you go back, just refer to the part at the beginning of the video. There's some links at the beginning of the course on how to set your language settings to English United States. there are these very teeny tiny differences between English Canada and English United States. And if you don't have it set to English US, you may get this step wrong. And by the way, as I'm doing this, you're just highlighting B6. That was B6 over to F10. Highlight, just a standard format, down into the cells. We haven't put the stuff in yet. You may notice if you keep watching the video that you don't see it in the proper format a little bit later in my video because I totally forgot to do this and had to go back and add this step in. So make sure you do exactly what I'm doing here. You go in, the accounting format is actually the currency symbol right here on your toolbar, or you could go here and choose accounting. Either one will be acceptable. This one's fine. And then you reduce to 0 decimal places, which you'll also notice that one of these numbers wasn't fitting in my visual later on the screen. Just ignore that. It's because I missed the steps. So you need to make sure you do accounting format, which can be achieved by using the currency symbol here. They say make sure to include the currency symbol because there is a version of the accounting format where you don't have to include that. But if your language settings are set to English US, you will get that correct. And moving on. Resize the width of columns B to F, so column B to F, to 12. Do not ungroup sheets. You can just keep going until it tells you to ungroup sheets. So highlight with the column letters B over to F. Go to Format. Do not do it with your mouse. Go to Format Column Width. When it asks for a specific size, you want to type it in and hit Enter in Format Column Width. So I'm not spending a lot of time on this stuff, primarily because these are steps that you should already know how to do. I just noticed I see number signs in column F there. That's not a big deal. It just means actually to be more specific about the reason you see the hashtags because the number isn't fitting in the width of the column after I just did the column width. It's because the first time, my first take on the video when I recorded it, I totally missed doing the accounting format and removing the decimal places, which you just watched me do correctly because I added it in after to make sure that your video presentation was still showing you each and every step, step by step, to get 100%. So I went back and added that in. So now the reason I'm adding in this little splice is because in case you do see here, if I go and add 2 decimal places back onto that, in case you see for the next few minutes in the video before we move on to the next worksheet that I do have those hashtags and there's still decimal places and you see the decimal places on all this stuff and you probably don't even see the accounting format, that's the reason why, and I just need you to ignore that. As long as you did that step that I just showed you a minute ago, you're going to be fine. Just ignore what you see on the screen because I did make a mistake, and sometimes that happens, and I'm not going to go and fix the entire video, but I'm just explaining to you how this works, and that would have been 6 part D. With them still grouped, in cell A6, change the text in person to read walk up. So not just formatting, but even changing the text. Walk up. I'm going to type that in. And if you copy and paste it, it would work, but that's just one word. You can type it in. And then in cell A9, same thing. I'll just type it in. Other referrals with a small r in front of referrals. Oh, so you could just add the word referrals. Enter. Do not ungroup sheets. Continuing on. So if you go to the other sheets now, within the group, you can see those words are there now too. Those new words, all the formatting you've done there that I don't get the numbers. Don't worry about the number signs. Just keep going. Again, enter a formula. So this is even more awesome that with the sheets grouped, you can do functions and it'll do the same thing on all the sheets. So it wants you to enter a formula in B10 using the sum function that totals the sales for Q1. So if you go to B10, you can obviously see this is just auto sum. And if you look ahead a little bit, you'll see that they want you to copy that formula to E10. Don't copy it all the way through here. That one was already there. Although, if you do copy it through, you will get that wrong because as I explained to you back earlier in the course, when you have a standard financial table like this, the very far right corner, the sum of the total up and down will always be the same number as the sum of the total left to right. But if Sam has put something in there for you, which is them summing the total left to right, and then you scroll through and put the summing up and down, you're going to see the same number and you're not going to think it's wrong. But because Sam said only copy the formula through to E, it will mark you wrong for that. Funny enough. I see those hashtags again, and I'm not going to worry about that because I know I changed the column width to F12. They're probably doing that on purpose to test you, but I still think depending on your screen resolution settings, you may very well not be seeing that. So don't think anything of it. At the end of that step, you may ungroup. So there you go. Ungroup the worksheets and then check to confirm that the formatting and formulas from step 6 through 8 are present in all 3 sheets. So now I can either click on a sheet that's not in the group, but you might have all the sheets in a file grouped when you're grouping, which means the easier way to do it would just be to right click and go ungroup. And if I click on them all, I can see all the stuff I did to the one worksheet has been done to all 3 now. Most efficient time saver thing ever if you have sheets that are all laid out in the same way. Now we're going to try another thing that saves a bunch of time. Edra wants to create a copy of the formatted Oregon worksheet to use for the Washington worksheet. So it's like, okay, cool. So I've been grouping this stuff and doing it all the same. You don't have to rebuild another sheet if you want it to be the same. So we have Idaho, Montana, Oregon. They want a Washington sheet now. So copy Oregon. So copy the formatting that is used for Washington selection. Edra wants a copy. So create a copy of the Oregon sheet and then put it between Oregon and consolidated, and then update the worksheet. So you want to create a copy of Oregon, right click, move or copy. And you could put it before itself, before consolidated right there. Or if you put it in the wrong place, you can just drag and slide it around once you put it in. And you want to create a copy, not just move. So see what I did there? Again, right click, move or copy, decide where you want to put it, click the box to create the copy. It is done. And it's sitting right here where you want it to sit. If it was like back over here or something by accident, you just drag and drop with your mouse. So lots of little things you're learning in here too. And you're going to change the worksheet name to Washington. So go to the Sheet tab, rename. I can type that out, Washington. If you don't get that right, if you get a typo in there, it will mark that wrong. It won't be able to find the sheet. Edit the text to read Washington in A2 to F2. So where it says Oregon, you're going to change that to Washington. And then clear the contents of B6 to E9 because you don't have the Washington data yet. So go B6 over to E down to 9. You do not clear the functions because I'm going to delete and get rid of that data. Once I put the new data in, it will have all those functions populate. And clearing contents, I mean, you can also go here and clear contents, and it's going to turn out the same way because deleting on the keyboard is the same as clearing contents. It's not going to wipe out the formatting and all that stuff. So either option would be fine. And that was step 9. So cool. We could have done that first and then grouped it together, but whatever. It's just copying a worksheet when you're going to be doing identical stuff is kind of a handy thing to know how to do and where to place it. Edra wants to consolidate the data from each of the regions. So go to the consolidated worksheet. Cool. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got this region too, where the data will eventually show up in there. And the consolidated sheet is going to put it all together. So in A6, enter a formula without using a function that references cell A6 in the Washington sheet. So this is the most simple formula you can do in Excel. It's called pointing to a cell. I know I've kind of alluded to this. I think I did show you in a previous video where you want something else that's in a cell. So you just go equals and then click on that cell. It's really simple. And that was something I'm sure I showed you in weeks 1 or 2 because I'm always encouraging my students all the time to always reference cells and only ever put data in once. That way, if there's something wrong with the data, when you go to fix it, it will be fixed everywhere that cell is referenced. Here, you're just referencing a word that you don't want to have to retype them and you want them to be identical. So you're going to go equals, and then you're going to go click on that cell. And then my students are usually like, whoa, wait a minute, the cell is not on this sheet. No big deal. With the equal sign active in the cell, you can act just as you would if you weren't creating a function and you wanted to get to what was in that cell. You go to the Washington worksheet and click on the cell. That is a 3D reference. So you're leaving the single dimension of one worksheet and referencing into another. There is nothing hard about that. You don't have to memorize the fact that all you got to do is name the worksheet and put an exclamation mark after it. it's easier to go and click on it than have to do that. Now, here is when that always hit enter thing really comes into play. Since the beginning of the course, whenever you're inputting what you need into a cell, as soon as you're done, what has my thing been? Always hit enter. What does everybody want to do as they're learning 3D references? They want to click back to the worksheet they started in, and then it just takes you in a circle and has you referencing the same cell you're sitting in. So I'm going to hit escape because we're not going to do that. We're going to hit equals. We're going to go to the Washington sheet, click in there with our mouse, click on the cell they want us to reference, and we're going to hit enter. As soon as you get what you have in there done, you hit enter. So some of you, if you're doing it and it's already wrong, just go back and watch this part of the video. This is your very basic introduction to 3D referencing. Once you do that, you can drag that down like any other formula or function, and it will reference the next group of words that come after that. See this? Pretty cool, eh? So now I have all those exact words referenced from that sheet. And I did notice that it took on some of the formatting there, so you can quickly, did it say fill without formatting? It does say without copying the formatting. So if you notice that the quick tool comes up here, you can immediately go fill without formatting. If you forget to do that, and so as soon as I click to the next cell or do something in a cell, I lose that little quick tool. What do? If you forget to, you just use Format Painter, and you'd have to do it twice because there's two different colors, but it's easier to remember to fill without formatting. But if you miss that part, you just Format Painter, no problem. And then you're going to do something even, this is the best part of any case in terms of something that seems like it would be harder, that seems like it should be hard, that is actually really easy. And I just love 3D referencing with functions. So in cell B6, you're going to start a sum function. We're going to go here, B6 equals sum. Just type it in. Don't use auto sum because there's no numbers around here. It's going to try and start summing up some random stuff. Start your parenthesis, otherwise known as the Canadian high school teacher brackets, because they don't call them parentheses. And what it wants you to do is sum up it, coincidentally, that exact cell, and it might not be that exact cell every time. It might be some other cell, but it wants you to sum up a cell from another worksheet, and then that same cell from the similar worksheets over and over again into this cell, which is the consolidated sum of that cell from the other worksheets. What did I do to get that one to come up? I just clicked on the other worksheet. So they want me to start at the Idaho worksheet. So click on Idaho, click on that cell. Now, if you just hit enter, all it's doing is summing up that one. So this is really not that big of a deal, but they don't want you to then go plus and then go get the next one and then go plus and then go get the next one. They want you to do it the easier way. So I'm going to clear the parentheses back out, and with the function active, I'm going to go here and click on that first cell. Idaho worksheet, cell B6. So the exclamation mark always identifies that it's doing a 3D reference. Without moving my mouse or clicking anywhere else, I'm going to get the other ones, and here's how you do it. So what we're doing is we're combining 3D referencing that we just learned with grouping that we learned in step 6. So we're going to 3D reference a cell in one worksheet and then group it together with a few more. And then what are we going to do once we get all that stuff inside the sum function? We're going to hit enter. So we got it there. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to grab Washington, because I believe it wants all, yeah, Idaho all the way to Washington. See what it did? But Mike, I don't see Montana and Oregon in there. You don't need to. It's the same as doing from one cell to another. You don't have to list. If you're going from like A5 to F10, you don't have to list within the range A6, A7, A9, A8, and then B7, B, you just put a colon in between. So you do the same thing with worksheet references. And it's picking up that same cell now from all those. And we do not go and click our mouse back on the consolidated sheet. Because if you do, you lose all that stuff you put in there. You try and hit enter, and again, it tells you, hey, you're going in a circle. What are you doing? You're entering a sum of itself into itself. That is not going to work. So we're going to do this one more time. Okay, so excuse me for doing it the wrong way. I just wanted to make sure you knew and saw what would happen if you did do it the wrong way. So now we're going to do it again the right way. We equal sum, start your parenthesis, go to the first worksheet, pick up the cell you're supposed to get, hold down the shift key, click on the last worksheet in the group, go take a look at what you have in the formula bar, looks good. You don't even have to finish the parentheses or close the parentheses, you can just hit enter. Hit enter. Always hit enter. Okay, now, you see that number, that is adding up B6. So we're going to do that again. Why not? Let's just do it for quarter 2. Equal sum, just to practice, even though all you have to do is do it once. Why am I going in there? Don't go in there. Just, it's very simple. Just equal sum. Although I do love the function wizard. Go back to the same one, pick up the next cell, hold down the shift key, click on the last worksheet in the group, hit enter. But once you do the first one, you can scroll through to quarter 4 and scroll down to other referrals, but fill without formatting. And that's what you get. Okay, so you really only have to do the one, and then you can copy it right through, which the instructions do indicate you can do. Copy the formula from B7 to 9. Oh, without copying the formatting there too. I didn't think there was any formatting that mattered there. But they're just, you know what? A lot of SAM steps make you do that just to be in the best practice of doing that. I'm going to undo that just to look quick. I don't think there's any formatting differences. I'm going to copy over to Q4. I will fill without formatting, but I don't think it would make any difference if you missed that one. It's this one that matters when you copy down, because you're copying then the green with those borders and the top border off of it all the way through into row 9, which you do not want to do. So, oops, I clicked off it, but it's still there. I haven't typed, so I can fill without formatting. And again, if you miss that, it's very easy. You can copy the formatting from here up to, well, you don't need to do that. The top row is fine. So you can copy the formatting from this cell and put it into these rows, and then this cell and put it into these rows using Format Painter in case you missed that part. But it's pretty easy not to miss that if you read the instructions first and then do it after. There we go. So that's 3D referencing, and it's awesome. So keep it on top of mind whenever you have worksheets that are formatted the same and you want to add stuff up from them, from the same cell in the same place. That's how you do it. Edra started to create named ranges in the worksheet and has asked you to complete the work. Create a defined name for B6 to E6 using walkup as the named range. So we are still in the consolidated sheet. Remember that when it tells you to go to a sheet, if it hasn't told you to switch, you're still in there. So you can do this by going to the name manager first. You can also highlight it first and then go to the name manager. It's B6 to E6. Okay, so you can highlight it first, and then you can go define name, or you can go define name with nothing highlighted. And you could put, well, it's still gonna pick up the cell you're in, and then you can just go and pick it up here. It's either way to do it. If you happen to go to define name without moving your mouse to where you want it to be, then you can just do it after. So I like to do it first. So let's go there. Define name. It's in this workbook, and it's called walkup. And you'll see that it already knew it was called walkup. Now, how is Excel that smart? Because it kind of takes a guess based on what you're highlighting, where the name might come from, and it happened to be right there in the cell. So you already got it done. You can click OK, and now you've got that name in there. If you go into the name manager, you'll see that you have a name called walkup that picks up those cells from that workbook. So that's done. And then you can use that somewhere in a formula instead of the range. That's the advantage of having defined names. So B6 to E6 using walkup, create names for the range A7 to E9 using the values shown in the left column. So noticing that it did that it knew to pick that up, I think I could probably go A7 to E9. E9, not B7. If I highlighted those and went over to that range and went to create from selection, it will actually give me the option of whether or not I want to pick those names up from the selection I've picked, which it will. And I click OK. And if I go to the name manager now I got these new names that have picked up those lines. And if you want to go and check it, you can just open it up. You can see B8 to E8, B7 to E7, that was the one above it. Other referrals, B9 to E9. It's pretty cool. So the first one we did, just to show you how you can do it manually, but Excel did notice that was there and it put it in for you. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we should be doing create from selection, which is even quicker. Then apply the defined names, Q1 sales, Q2 sales, Q3 sales, Q2, to the formulas in the B10 to E10 range in the consolidated worksheet. So if we go B10 to E10, B10 over to E10, you'll see that for right now, they're basically just using cell references. So as you probably noticed when I was in the name manager, there's all this other stuff they'd already done in there. And if you want to know what a name is identifying, you can actually type it right into here and it will show you where it is. But you can also do that from the name manager by clicking right on it. You can also highlight that range, and when you get to the fourth cell, it will show you the name in there. You can start using names in formulas like I'm about to do here, and it will actually auto-complete it for you. So what they want you to do is, instead of using the range, they want you to use the name, and it will add those up for you. This is very efficient. This case is all about efficiency. So it's auto-completing there. I can double-click it. It's done. I wouldn't type them in. Well, you're going to know if you have them right or not. You can type them in if you want, but second you start the first two characters, double-click, put it in. So this is showing you an example, quarter three, sorry, of using names, define names in functions as numbers or as ranges, because this isn't just a cell, this is an entire range. Q4 sales, double click, done. If you need to see that again, go back and watch it again. There's no point showing that one over and over again and beating it to death. These are names that were already in there, and now I'm showing you that you can use them in functions. And that was the entirety of step 12, B10 to E10, and now you're going to change the define name. Also quite easy to do. There's a bit of a Mac hint here for Mac users, so take notice of that. Delete the existing name totals and add the new define name. Change the define name totals underscore 21 for F9. Wait, so it's wanting you to, okay, yeah. So it's wanting you to find the one that is named for F6 to F9, and it's just telling you that on a Mac, it has a slightly different name. So we are going to change the define name to totals underscore 2021, which I can copy here, or you can type it out, whatever. So F6 to F9, we can highlight that right now and see what it is. F6 down to F9 is total without an S. It's just total. I don't know why they would do that to Mac users and make it one character different, but you're going to do this in the name manager. So go to the name manager, go to total, go to edit, and where it says name, put the new name in. So I realize that for me to call this an advanced case is a bit arbitrary, given that what I'm doing is far from advanced. Then you can close when you're done. But it's stuff people don't realize is there and is easy to do. So now we're almost done. I told you this was going to be a short one. Edward wants to compare 2021 sales totals to the sales totals for 2020 and needs to add a 2020 data, the 2020 data, to the consolidated worksheet in order to do this. So we're going to open up that Excel support file you had. See, I told you didn't have to open the Word file. You just link to it. But again, if it wasn't on your computer with that name, you're going to get that wrong. So this one here downloads. We're going to open up the support Excel file. Okay, I'm going to show you a nice, easy way to do this. In Excel, when you have multiple files open, you have options under the View menu. You can view these side by side. You can do different stuff with the windows. You can switch from one window back and forth to the other. We're going to enable editing on that one. That's the one we just opened. Okay, so the support file just opened up right over this one. Then I switched back to this one, back to the view pane. So there's this option under View for Arrange All. So this deals with the open windows of this particular application. You can do this in most Microsoft, I think all of them actually. I prefer tiled, which is the first option. So you can see what that does. It puts them side by side, and you can try one of the other options too. And now it makes what we're about to do a heck of a lot simpler, because you don't have to go down here and bounce back and forth from one window to the other. And the quiz will ask you to do some stuff like this as well. It might ask you to arrange all windows in a different way. So that's all done under the view pane. And what they want you to do is link cell G6 in the consolidated worksheet to cell F6 in the consolidated 20 sales worksheet 2020 from the support file. So this is the same as 3D referencing from one worksheet to another. You're just doing it from one file to another. So here is your start file that you're working on. You're going to type equals, and you want to link it to F6 from this worksheet. So you literally go click on it and hit enter. That is it. That is literally it. Now, from that point forward, you could remove the absolute referencing and actually drag it down and then go put the absolute referencing back in, because I think Sam will mark you wrong if you don't have it in there. Or you could just literally just do each of them. It's that simple. I mean, this will be quick. So the next one, I think it's just down the line. G7 to F7, G8 to F8, G9 to F10. Do not break links and close the support file. So if this file does not have the correct name, you will get that wrong, which is why I'm always telling you, whenever you have support files, do not mess with the names. Let's just do them the way we're learning to do them, just by doing a point to a cell, file to file reference. Next one, equals, point to a cell. You got to click twice to get in there. Next one, equals, click, point to a cell. Here, one second, let me backtrack on that one. Let me do the last one more time. So what I mean by this two clicking thing is you hit the equal sign, you hit equals, you click over here once to get into that file pane, then you click the cell you're linking to. So you do have to click twice. Then you hit enter. So those are done now. Moving on to G10, and this is going to be, so you can close the support file now. That was it. And again, you have to have the exact name or those links will be marked wrong. And if you were one that wanted to get slick and drag these down, you would have had to remove the absolute referencing and then put it back in again. So probably easier just the way I did it, considering you only had to do it 4 times. So close the support file. I remember changing the support file. It's weird. And then my computer asks to save changes on everything. It's like I breathe on it and it saves changes. What am I doing way up there? In cell G10, enter in a formula to total the values in the defined range totals 2020. So now we're going to make a sum function, just like the sum functions we sort of edited back here in step 13. We're going to sum, because a defined range isn't necessarily just a single cell, although it can be. It is very often a range of cells. And then, so that you don't have to remember where the range is or what's going on, you can simply go and start a sum function and say, yep, I want to grab the 2020 total. So I start typing that in. Totals 2020 auto completes right there. You can double click it, hit enter. You've just built a function with a defined name in it, the same way you edited these to have defined names in them. And that was the final step. I told you this one wasn't going to be too long. So save your file. I haven't been doing the saving thing this time. As always, if you go to close it, it's going to save all your changes anyway. And then back to Sam and submit. Yeah, saving the file. By the way, if you're ever watching my screen very closely and you notice you might see more than one submission, I have different sections I use for grading and stuff. So just note that you always only have 2 submissions. Let's see how we did. All right, there you go, 100 out of 100. So probably not going to be too bad of a case. You might be able to get 100 your first time around. If not, as always, as a stern reminder, now that we are going into the cases that are worth 1% more than the previous 5 cases, make sure if you don't get 100, you go back, look at what your mistakes were, and fix it to get 100. That will do it for the week 7 case demonstration. Bit shorter than usual. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back next week for week 8.